Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my Thursday live stream where we talk about photography and what's new, what's been going on, and today actually I have a very special guest, Emily Lowrey from Micro Four Nerds, and it's been a long time since she's been on the scene here, in content creation or YouTube time. 4 months is a long time, right? But she's back, and I wanted to see how she's been and talk to her a little bit about what she's been up to because she was really, I think, a force in the Micro Four Thirds world and has done a really great job, um, teaching and sharing her experience with the system and platform and I think she's been a very big source of inspiration for many of us in the Micro Four Thirds community. And, there's also been the release of the GH6, which she's had for a few weeks, working with, so we'll talk about that. So, without further ado, here's Emily. I can click the right button. Good morning, everyone. Hi, good morning, good afternoon.
Hello, I'm very happy to be here. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Awesome, awesome. It's so good to see you again, Emily, and I was so excited, when I saw your video come up on the GH6. I was like, "Oh, she's back," you know? 'Cause, as I was saying before, I've always thought you were great inspiration to many other photographers, especially on this platform on Micro Four Thirds. But, I don't like to limit just to this one. There's a lot of great cameras out there, and we're free to talk about anything on that subject. So, anyhow, tell us, for people that may not know you because, there's probably how many new people come on to YouTube every day.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about, who you are and what we should know about you.
Yeah, so I have been a professional wedding photographer for 10 years this year. And for the last sort of four of those, I've also done videography as well. I've been shooting Lumix for quite a while, and I have both the Micro Four Thirds systems and the S5 and the S1. And I'm also doing corporate videography, but sort of for my own personal projects. I love landscape photography, astrophotography. I think my biggest sin is I like a little bit of everything, and you can't stick me in one box, so it's terrible. I'll just try everything photography wise.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us, a little bit about, I guess, how you got started, for those that may not know, in photography and where you are today.
Yeah, so I started, I think, like a lot of people do. I asked to second shoot with someone who was already established for free. And I did several weddings for free just to sort of see what it was all about and see if I had the right equipment. And there's a lot of intricacies to a wedding day that's a lot more than about the photography. It's its own beast. And I did that for a good while because I wasn't very confident. But then I saw that the photographs that I was taking as the assistant shooter, more and more were making them into the album that the main photographer was delivering. So I kind of thought, maybe I am of a standard to start charging and doing this myself. And then there was a transition period where, for a number of years, I had to work part time and do weddings on the side until I had enough in front schedule to make the jump. And then full time ever since. And it's been wonderful and terrifying, particularly in the last few years.
Yeah. Yeah. How did I guess what did you do to sort of overcome some of the challenges and during the pandemic and things?
I'm very proud to say that I did manage to live 100% off my camera still. I just had to shift gears and shift lanes a little bit. I
Hmm.
moved into course creation and photography tutoring. I worked very closely with a company called iPhotography, and we did a landscape course in the Lake District in the UK. We spent 2 weeks on location, getting up at the crack of dawn and hiking up hills. And the presenter for that was a landscape photographer on YouTube called Chris Sale. He's very, very talented. I did a wildlife course with a very talented photographer called Rachel Sinclair. And then I hosted my own wedding photography masterclass. And I did Lightroom and Luminar and just a whole host of course creation, which was incredible. but it also meant that I was working 40 hours a week or more, editing that, and I completely burnt out on YouTube as a consequence. I just couldn't face my computer or my camera at the end of the day to make anything creative for myself, unfortunately, which is why I've been a little bit absent. Uh, we got a frozen Rob. What's going on?
Oops. All right, we're
Hey!
back.
I thought you were just so engrossed in what I was saying. You were just like, so still.
I no, no, I am engrossed. No, when we have these disruptions, though, I can't remember what we were talking about.
That's fine. I was just talking about what I've been doing over the pandemic period,
Oh,
which
right,
was
right.
lots of course creation and lots of rescheduling weddings. Like, I'm doing weddings this year for people that booked in 2018 and 2019. So I feel like I'm working for free and it's horrible.
uh, the creating courses and educational material. I mean, do you have a background in education and tutoring or teaching and things like that, or did it just come naturally to you?
Do you know, I think starting my YouTube channel and learning to be a little bit more confident in front of the camera and just confident in myself, to be honest. It's sort of even 5 years ago, if you'd have said I was doing this, I'd be like, there's no way. You would just be hiding. I would just be hiding. There's no way. So it has been all self-taught. And sort of, I think with the community on my own channel, people saying that I've got a good way of making information quite accessible to beginners and
Hmm.
explaining things without overwhelming people. Um, Seemed to be a good fit for the iPhotography tutors, and they've got me creating course content for them.
Wow, and you really make your content a lot of fun to watch too.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you. It's something I
yeah,
really try to do. I don't. You can read the specs anywhere, can't you? You wanna learn and see some real world results, but also hopefully be entertained a little bit and see me acting like a idiot.
right, right. Now that that's really really so important, being able to connect with your viewers and making it fun and uh and also teaching something or giving a message. And I think that's what makes you and your channel so wonderful and has been, like I said, a very positive force and inspiration to many people.
It's so
But
nice that
with
you
that,
say that. That's lovely. Thank you.
yeah, I rehearsed it for a while. No, just kidding. No, I mean that because when it's true, it just comes out, fluidly. And but the one of the things when you were starting your business, you started like a lot of people. You were second shooter for weddings, and for a while, then you did a few on your own for free, which I did the same thing in my business. I did like 5 or 6 properties. I do real estate and commercial, no charge, so I could get that experience. And then I said, okay, after the fifth one, you're paying.
Yeah, that's it. You've
Uh,
got to know when to stop. Once you've got all the skills that you need in the portfolio you need, you do have to have the confidence to start charging. It's very easy
right,
to get stuck in the free or
right.
the low cost barrier, I think.
So I just wanted to back up a little bit because you're it's a lot like when I talked to Natalie last week. You're very young, and I'm sure your age, may have played a factor when you were getting started. Tell me some of the challenges you had in business, maybe even as a woman, in photography, uh, that you may have faced, if any, when you were starting out, if that was an issue, and how you overcame them if you needed to.
Yeah, I think in the wedding industry in particular, when I started, it was very heavily skewed towards male photographers. I think now it's actually going more towards more female photographers. They seem to be the award winners at the moment. Um, but for me, looking a little bit baby faced. I am an adult, I promise. And rocking up to venues and working with couples. If I arrive with a second photographer who happens to be a man, they'll guide all the questions towards him before me and just assume, man with camera, you're in charge. This is your little assistant. And I kind of have to go, hi, it's me. I'm the one you've paid lots of money to be here. Please listen to me.
Yeah, yeah, and to be honest, I've been guilty of that myself. You know, I just saw a couple there at a camera store, and they were looking at cameras, and I went right to the guy. So, what are you looking for? What do you know? He said, well, actually, it's my wife. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, oh,
My husband gets that all the time when we go into camera shops and they start talking to him, and he's like, I have no idea. Absolutely no idea.
yeah, yeah. It is interesting. And then uh, I because I've heard so many stories, but there's so many awesome women photographers in the business, um, and not only in the business, but as in amateur photography. Like in my photo club that I joined, David Crooks is here. It's his club actually.
Amazing.
Uh, you know, it's a lot of women in there, and they love photography, and they take amazing pictures with just the most basic gear sometimes. And you know, when you watch a lot of channels online, you just don't see enough women, I think, in YouTube on the photography side. And especially here in the US, I think a lot of the content is very gear based
Mm,
and uh, you know, talking about specs and all of that. And you're a nerd, so you appreciate that.
I do. I enjoy it. I enjoy a good pixel peep. I really do. I've been doing it all morning, actually.
Yeah. Um,
But it can't all be about that, you know.
right.
I think because photography is such a creative thing, you can't distill it down to pixels and specs. I think the joy about photography is you can go out with a film camera or your phone or any piece of equipment, and if you see something that inspires you, it doesn't matter how much you've spent. It's about being out there capturing things and using your skills much more than the spec.
Yeah. And how, you know, tell me a little bit about your creative process. And because whenever I watch your videos or see your photos, you know, I always feel happy and joy, right? It's a very positive image, and I think that can be a style, even though you can't really quantify with lines and angles and composition. But when I look at your photos and I watch your videos, it's just a very happy thing, right? So
That's wonderful. That's a good
I
thing to know.
yeah, and I wanted to maybe delve into a little bit about your creative process, if any, you know, when you're taking a photo, how does your personality come through? Because when I see a photo online, I'm like, oh, that looks like Emily, right? Because it's just so happy. But
Do
you
you know,
know what?
that's so good, and I think as a photographer, you do need to strive to have that being recognizable. Like, you see an image and go, that's, who's took it straight away, and that's something that I work towards, whether that's editing consistency or just things that make me smile. I like a little bit of whimsy in my photographs sometimes. Like, I love finding a massive, gorgeous landscape and sticking a silly sheep in front of it, or street photography is always full of interesting characters. But I think once you know the basics of photography, when you go out with a camera, you're essentially showing the world how you see it. So if I'm in a happy cinnamon roll sort of headspace, I'll choose those sorts of compositions and edit them in a certain way as well, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely comes through in your photography and in your video work, and I can imagine your clients see that too when you're doing the weddings, for example. Um, and I haven't looked, you know, I haven't gone through your portfolio on weddings, but I'm sure it has sort of the same kind of vibe. It's a very happy time for everyone involved, and you capture those moments. And do you intentionally do that, or is it just how you come through now? Is that when you do your because when I do paid work, I get all serious. Lines, angles, horizons need to be straight, you know, because that's the kind of work I do. But wedding photography, I think, is so well suited for your kind of photography or style that I've seen.
Yeah, The worst part of the day for me is doing the formal shots and everyone has to stand and, you know, don't bother with that. I wanna capture the laughter. I wanna get the couples giggling in each other's ears. I wanna get them holding hands and, you know, when you think about your wedding day, it's not the formal moments that you want, like, remembering forever. You want to see the smiles and the tears and all the joy. So it's very much trying to just capture all the good stuff that's happening and letting it happen rather than interfering with it. That's my style. And that may not be the most technical compared to other types of photography because if something happens off the cuff, you may not have a perfect composition. But if you're capturing the emotion and the memory, my business is called Make Life Memorable Photography. So it's all about capturing the memorable parts of life. That's what I try to aim to do.
Yeah, I mean, I can just picture on a job and you're laughing and crying with everyone.
Terrible. Sometimes in speeches, I've got the camera to my eye and I'm wiping tears off my face. I'm terrible. And I'm not even that soppy. It's just when people, when people are being honest and emotional, I just think it's lovely. It's a joy to capture. It's an honor to capture it.
Yeah, I tell you, I wish I could be more like you in that way, right? Where I can get into the moment and enjoy what's happening, but when I put a camera in my hand, I'm immediately thinking about exposure, composition,
Yeah.
and settings, and focal length, and then if the moment happens to walk in front of me, I'll push the shutter button,
Yeah.
But I think that's why I'll never be a wedding photographer like you. It just I would miss everything.
That's the one thing you've got to be quick. You got to be quick off the mark. You never know what's going to happen. But during recent world events, obviously that's been a smaller part of what I've been doing. I've been working more in corporate and social video and photo content, and it's essentially starting a business from scratch. And the way that I've gone about it this time is so much different to how I started earlier on. It's all Instagram based. If you put a little bit of portfolio up on Instagram and use the right hashtags, people will start contacting you and then it just kind of spreads. It's all online now. It's so much easier.
Wow, that's interesting because I've always been under the impression that when you're looking for business and sharing your business or trying to get business, you have a portfolio, prints that you
Yeah.
take to the client and show them, maybe put a book in book form or magazine form or binder. Do you use that much, or use primarily, you show your Instagram? And I mean, how do you get your business generally? What are people
So
impressed by?
I did go to back when meetings were face to face, pre world events. I used to rock up with my iPad and we'd scroll through all the images. And more often than not, the couple would be like, "Yeah, I've seen your Instagram, I've seen your website. I know you're wonderful. I just wanted to meet you and talk about this." And
Mhm.
I think by the time I send them a brochure with some images in and information about me and price lists. And by the time they want to book, that's all done with. The only time that you really need portfolio is if I'm doing sort of wedding fairs, and then I'll put some prints out on a stand, and I've got the big banners and everything. But more often than not, it's people finding me through Google, through word of mouth, because in my area I have been doing this for like 10 years. So you do tend to go through word of mouth quite a lot as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the
Yeah,
best kind of business, right?
definitely.
Uh, there's a question here I thought was really good that I should have asked you, but did you find your style evolved with the wedding photography you do, or is it were you already leaning that way? Was that your style evolved more natively?
That's a great question. I think one thing that photography did for me was giving me the opportunity to try and try and try and try and, you know, shooting every single weekend, and things evolve a lot quicker the more you use your camera. Um, I think it really did evolve the more weddings I went to and the more things I saw, because I started off portraiture and family shoots that were a lot more posed and a lot more in control. And then when I started doing weddings, it was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I just want to capture people having a great time. and trying to do it, as emotional and as evocative as possible, and sort of throw the rule book out. So it's definitely something that's evolved the more weddings I've been to.
Mm. Okay, so your work really drove your style, but
Yeah,
I think your personality drove you to your work because you just love
yeah,
people,
yeah,
right? But your
yeah,
style sort of evolved from there. But I think at the core has always been your very jovial personality is what has come through in both your work and what has driven your work that you like to do has also driven sort of the images and style that you have in your photography.
yeah. And I think getting your personality across as a business, and if you're on YouTube or even on Instagram, um, that's the thing that sets you apart from everybody else. Everyone might have the same camera as you, everybody might have similar ideas to you, but it's your voice and your personality that makes your content yours. And the same goes for your photography, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, that's I guess that would be true for most photography businesses that are successful is people want to hire you because you have that style that they want.
Yes.
Um, because there's lots of great photographers and they all have their different styles, and it's just a matter of getting the clients that like your style and what you can give them.
Definitely, and the same for YouTube as well. It's I've always felt like a little bit of imposter syndrome on YouTube, and I've always thought maybe I should emulate this person, or maybe I should do this. But if you're copying someone else, you're only going to be the second best person doing that. So it's better to be the best version of yourself.
Wow, wow, that's deep. That's deep. Uh, you know, the, now that you've sort of have your own style and a way of taking photography, and it just comes naturally to you, I'm sure. But do you still look for inspiration and new ideas? Are you still looking to grow? Where do you find inspiration, and what is that process?
Always, I think the best thing and one of the worst things about photography is you're never done. However good you are today, the next step is where you're going to be a year from now, where you're going to be 5 years from now. It's always evolving, and the downside of that is you look back at things that you used to be proud of and go, oh, I could do that better now. So I think
Yeah.
it's largely a race against myself, to be honest. I think as long as I can see that I'm improving month on month, year on year, I think that's important to me. I like to look at other people's photography, particularly in Instagram and blog posts. And because I'm a photography tutor now online, I do get to see a lot of beginner photographers, and I get to sort of coach them up and see how they evolve. But
Hmm.
yeah, as long as I can see my own improvement, that's what inspires me the most. Basically, looking back at me and going, "Oh God, that was terrible, Emily."
Yeah, I remember you did a video once, and you showed a lot of your old photos, and you were saying, "Oh man, I really liked leading lines back then."
Yeah, leading lines that just led to nowhere. I was just obsessed with the concept of leading lines, but there was no story, there was no subject, there was no payoff.
Right.
But I think that's something that I've seen so much tutoring beginner photographers. They'll learn about rule of thirds or they'll learn about negative space, but then it's a tool that's towards the storytelling rather than the point of the picture. And I think we've all been there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've taught classes actually on composition and the end of the lecture, I tell people, the most important thing in photography is the story, depending on the audience, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
And it doesn't
and
have
it
to be
doesn't,
like a three-part structure. It could just be a concept or an emotion or something that you want to convey. It can be a very simple story, but it still has to be there.
right, right. And this was a good question, kind of uh, about your business. I mean, do you feel there's been more demand for video, and how do you sell it? On a stick or email? I don't know what that means. I
Oh,
guess
no,
that
I know what
means
that means. Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I can't decide whether the demand for video is going up or it's just less concentrated in the videographer mark, so I get more work from that. There's so many photographers around here in my area, but relatively few videographers. So I'd say there's more demand coming up for video, but I just think it's easier to get those bookings because there's fewer people doing it at the moment. I deliver my video content and photo content on a gallery service called PicTime, and it just puts up this gorgeous, minimalistic, really polished website for your client, and they can share all of that with the friends and stuff. But then, in terms of like actually giving them the content to download, I upload it to Vimeo, and then I just give them that link. So I showcase it on PicTime, and then they can download it for their archives on Vimeo.
Hmm. Wow, that's interesting because Vimeo though is a paid service though, right? So you use that as
Yeah.
your business.
Yeah, it's just because it's if you want to embed it in your website, it's ad free, unlike YouTube, and
Mm.
you can really tailor what you see, and it's uncompressed as well. It's a very good delivery service, but it is quite pricey. So it is quite depending on how much I need. It is quite pricey.
Yeah, yeah. But if it's, for your business, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I mean, I've done a couple of video jobs outside of my normal, uh, because usually my videos are 2 minutes for property videos.
yeah.
But I've done 15, 20 minute sort of event type videos, and I just put them on YouTube unlisted.
That's a way to do it. Yeah.
I mean, the quality's not the same, obviously, um, but I was always curious, why are people using Vimeo? That
Well,
makes sense. What you said is, you
yeah.
get uncompressed quality.
And
But
I say in my contract as well that I'll only host them for 12 months. So
mm,
I want them to download it and make their own copies and make their own backups rather than it being on a YouTube unlisted for ever and ever. I just want them to get their own copy and it's a high quality
I
one.
see. So they can download the full res from Vimeo as well.
Yes, but I showcase it on a service called PicTime just because it's a bit prettier than Vimeo and they don't get to
Hmm.
see all the other stuff on my Vimeo. It's just theirs.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, oh, where was I going with this? Do you? I'm sorry. I'm getting old. The the video side though, you think it's a matter of people are not you don't have as much competition on the video side. That's where you're getting more work. That's
Currently,
interesting.
I would say so. I guess I don't know if in America it's a bigger thing, but I think photography here is super saturated. You can fall over a photographer when you walk
Hmm.
outside, but getting the higher quality video stuff, the eye-catching stuff that you want for your Instagram and for your business website, it's a much fewer people will offer that. So it's a good
Hmm.
time to jump in that, definitely.
Yeah. How about drone video type stuff? How does that work in your business, if at all?
I was so mad with my drone stuff. In the UK, you had to do this really annoying, elaborate course. It was like 4 days where you had to learn about everything. You had to do ordnance survey maps, how to phone airport traffic control. And then we left the EU because of Brexit. And now it's like, oh, yeah, just buy this piece of paper for 25 quid and you can do what you want with your drone. So I'm like, well, at least I know all the stuff. I've used it a few times for weddings. However, it's a pain in the backside, and you have to up your public liability insurance. And what we tend to do, here is a little behind the scenes into the wedding industry, is all the local wedding videographers will pool all of the drone footage of all the venues, and we just swap with each other. So it's not taken on the same day. If you know someone that shot there 5 months ago and they took a drone shot, you just take that shot because it's only of the building, it's not of the couple. So yeah,
Hmm.
we just share shots, so it's easier to do.
That's wow. That's interesting. So you guys have your own little stock footage group that you should.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ah,
So many times it's like we have like little Facebook groups, and it's like the weather was terrible today. Does anyone have any drone footage of this venue? And yeah, just share it.
wow. Wow. Boy, that would never happen here as far as I know. That's interesting. I think the let's transition a little bit to uh the gear, right?
Oh, yes, this
And
is.
because I mean, you do a lot of photography and a lot of video. And before we go too far, but when for your pro work and your amateur work, your personal stuff, do you use different cameras, or do you have a camera of choice that you do kind of everything with, or do you have so many cameras that just whatever color you feel like taking?
I should open a shop, shouldn't I? So for wedding photography, I have shifted more towards the full frame S1 and S5, just
Mm.
because I shoot very shallow depth of field prime lenses, like the 85mm 1.4, and it's delightful. But for video, it's a mixture of the GH5 and the S5 because they're both
Hmm.
small enough to put on my gimbal, and they're very, the footage matches very much. For my personal work, or if I was doing videography only, I'd probably just use my GH5 and my Micro Four Thirds stuff because it's just easier.
Yeah.
And then for personal stuff, it all depends where I'm heading. Like if I'm doing some wild camping, which I've been getting into recently, I take my G100. The
Mm.
tiniest, cheapest camera that I own. I've got a cabinet full of cameras, and I take the £300 entry level one, just because it's lighter. You can still get fantastic photos with it, and it's having the right
Yeah.
tool with you for the job. I like to do
Hmm.
that for when I'm hiking and camping and things.
Yeah. And you've had the S5 for a while now, and is that your photo camera or your video camera? What do you use for the photo and video on your jobs? Exactly.
Literally, for wedding photography, I use my S5 and my S1. I haven't used it very much at all in any other circumstances, just because it's too heavy. Even though the camera body is nice and compact, by the time you stick your heavy lenses on it, you have to be going out with something in mind. So I'll just grab my GH5 for photography or personal projects usually.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm the
Have
same
you had the
exact way.
same? I was going to say you've got the same problem, haven't you, with your S5?
Yeah, yeah, my S5 is strictly just for video work. I've taken it like on one photo walk when I first got it, and uh and then ever since then it's just been on a gimbal for video work.
Same.
Uh but now that there's new cameras out, like if for example if the GH6 had been out when I bought this, I'd have most likely went with the GH6.
I would never have bought the S5 or the S1 if the GH6 was there. I've been pixel peeping some low light photos and videos today, and
Hmm.
you can get up to 12,800 ISO. It's not even like, on the GH5, I don't want to go over like 1,000 ISO, to be honest. That's about as much as it can cope with. But
Mm,
the GH6 and the S5, there's so little between them in terms of low light. It's ridiculous.
that is ridiculous.
Mhm.
That's
I have a
surprising.
dedicated video coming out soon. It's called like a Lumix shoot off where we do low light video, low light photography, and we get a little bit nerdy and pixel peep.
Yeah. Wow. So you've had the GH6 a couple of weeks or
Yes, I've had it just over 2 weeks. The Lumix were very
Mhm.
kind to take me to London and put me up in a lovely fancy hotel on the Thames. And
Wow.
then we had the big presentation where it was all under embargo, and it was all very intimidating. It's like phones off. And then we had like a lovely meal, and then we got the equipment. And it's just gone back today, actually. I've given it back to the postman, and I was like, bye. I'm so upset.
Oh,
But yeah, I've literally for the last 2 weeks, because I knew that it was coming, I've cleared my schedule. So even though I've only had it for 2 weeks, I've been out every single day with it. I've had plans every single day. I've got so much in the bank, in terabytes and terabytes of hard drives for videos coming up, because I thought it was such a great opportunity, and I think people have a lot of questions about it. So let's do it. Let's do as much as we can while I have it.
wow. Yeah, so to the viewers in my audience here, if you want to if you have some questions about the GH6, Emily can answer them. But let me get through a couple first
Yeah.
myself. Uh, when they sent you is the GH6 like because they got that fan built in, right?
Hmm.
When I saw that, I said, "Wow, that's gonna be kind of bulky." I don't know, but the GH5 wasn't a small camera to begin with. How much difference do you feel like there is, like You just immediately notice a big difference, or is it just, "Oh, it's a little heavier, but okay, let's go."
It feels identical in the hand because the grip feels quite similar,
Mm,
but it is a little bit heavier. My ever patient husband, who's tapping around on the desk behind us, he's been my cameraman for the last 2 weeks. So he's been filming on the GH5, no idea what he's doing. He's just like, yeah, it's fine. So I've just left it in auto mode for him.
mhm,
And I've been carrying the GH6. So when I've been swapping, I've been like, oh God, the GH5 is a little bit lighter. But I wouldn't
mhm.
say the GH6 is hefty, particularly with your micro four thirds lenses, which always will be smaller anyway.
Yeah,
So it's heavier, but not unmanageably so.
right, and did you, so the handling is virtually identical then, right? You don't feel, I mean, you really like the handling of the GH5, so the GH6 is just exactly the same then.
Yeah, the one thing that has made me stick with Lumix cameras, and if you're an Olympus fan, you'll probably feel the same way about that system, is when you get a new camera, you know where everything is, you know the menus, it's all laid out. So the learning curve is really, really quick when you
Yeah.
upgrade.
Yeah, I thought there was a couple of ingenious things though. Just and we're talking about the ergonomics is I really like the screen how it tilts up, like
Fun
the
fact,
S.
I only figured out that it did that yesterday.
Oh my
I watched
God.
I watched Potato Jet's video and I'm like, "Oh my god, I didn't even realize it did that." So, yeah. But yeah,
You're
I'm a big fan of that. Now I know that it does that and I can no longer use it.
that's funny. You had that camera for 2 weeks and you
I
didn't
know,
know the screen tilted up.
I know, I know.
Wow.
I should hand in my nerd card right now.
And then the other thing there, well, there's actually two things. I love the tally light and I love the little sound button
Yes.
um, on top.
Yeah, I've noticed the red recording button is really helpful because I've been doing lots of, focus tests and stuff where I've got 3 cameras intimidatingly pointing at me, and the only one
Hmm.
that you can tell is recording from the front is the GH6 because it does have the record button facing you. All the others, I don't know if they were recording or not, so, but yeah, I think they've done a lot of really little changes that
Hmm.
make using it every day really, really good.
Yeah, that I forgot about that front record button. That was, yeah, it's just the little things, right, that make it really nice. And of course, the Panasonics have a huge infrastructure on accessories and things to rig everything up and really get it, full on, movie mode, right? Like you're going to shoot a movie or something. But the couple of the specs that I really liked was being able to shoot internal ProRes and the CF Express card, so you can put in like a 2 terabyte Express card. And I thought what was really great about that was, now you don't have to buy like that separate Ninja 5 or whatever. It really truly becomes a run and gun, full on cinematic camera.
It's so true. I mean, I've always wanted to tinker with your ProRes, just to get the most dynamic range out of the cameras that I own. But I was really put off with buying sort of your Atmos Ninja, and your tiny camera suddenly becomes a big rig, and you'll need a cage, and you'll need this, this, and this, and being able to record it internally. My color grading the ProRes footage out of the GH6 is so so nice. You can do so much with it.
Yeah, and the other thing, and having it all on one, really, if you use a gimbal, it makes a huge difference too, I would think, right?
Definitely,
It's
it's so much easier just on and off, and you don't have to worry. The one thing I would say is it eats storage if you are shooting in ProRes. Like my little talking head bit for the review that I did, it was maybe about 17 minutes with all my mess ups. I had to stop before the end and dump 128 gigabytes into my computer before I could film my outro. It
oh my
eats
gosh.
storage. I learnt that lesson the hard way, ladies and gentlemen. Don't do it for the talking head bits. Save it for
Right,
special occasions.
right. Well, that's better than, sitting there for 17 minutes and you forgot to hit the record button.
That's true. Yeah, that's
Because
true.
that tally light is really a big deal.
Yeah, so good.
I mean, I know all of us have been there where we finish a scene and then it's like, oh man, I didn't push record for the whole thing. Um, okay, let me pull up a quick question here. I saw this is a pretty easy one for you. Why don't you use the GH6 to stream now?
Oh, it's gone home, unfortunately. But it also doesn't have the Wi-Fi streaming capabilities like the GH5 Mark II does. So you can't do it. You need your capture card anyway, which I do have somewhere. I'm just being lazy.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I should get a proper camera in here with my capture card.
Yeah, yeah,
Is that
and
how you do it?
yeah, I use a capture card and I use an EM10 Mark II actually for
It does look
the
so good, so good.
uh
Very professional. You've got set up here. It's good.
I try, green screen, a couple of lights and
I love the intro as well. It's a cracking photo.
yeah, that thanks. But even if you were to put on like a high-end camera like a GH6 for streaming, it gets compressed into this app that I use for the streaming, Melon app, and
Mhm.
then that gets sent to YouTube, and then YouTube compresses it again. So it's kind of overkill
Yeah.
uh, to really set up a full-on rig. So I'm just using EM10 Mark II on full HD with a well, I got a fancy pants capture card now, thanks to Feel World. But
Very
um,
nice. I have some panel lights from them. I like them very much.
yeah, yeah. So there's a few perks every now and then having a channel. And then let's see, there was another question here. Have you tried the 100 megapixel high res shot?
I have. I have, yes. Um, I Wow, we're being honest, the first time I tried it, you have to turn it on in the menu to handheld mode, otherwise the stabilization stays off. So I went up the Peak District for a lovely walk and I did all this stuff to camera, like the high res mode's amazing, and then I've got home and they're all blurred. So you have to make sure it's in handheld mode. But once you've got the settings right and you're not an idiot like me, it's absolutely phenomenal. Like it just takes a couple of seconds and it takes a couple of seconds to sort of save into the camera, but the quality of that file is incredible. I've got tons of them, and I'm going to do a GH6 for photography dedicated video because I think there's quite a few people that are interested in those specs, and I don't think it's been covered too much. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the 100 megapixel handheld shot, and it's not a gimmick. It 100% works. It's really good.
What lenses did you shoot with when you did the high res shots?
So Lumix gave me the stock lens that comes with it, which I think is 20 to 60. And then I had the 8 to 18, and then I had the 12 mil 1.4 Leica. So I went all wide angle basically.
Hmm.
I was hoping to get some astro shots done, but two storms in the UK didn't work.
Mm,
So yeah, I've tried it on the long end of the strap lens at sort of the 60 mil, and also the wide end, and the stabilization's been great. In fact, last night I was out on a bridge filming traffic trails handheld, and I got 4 second exposures handheld. Four
wow.
seconds. And I pixel peeped against the GH5 and the S5, and it's crystal clear on the GH5. The stability is like nothing I've ever used. Even the top end Olympus cameras, which are very, very good for stability, this just is ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely everyone's been very impressed with the IBIS, on the few reviews that I've seen. And just another quick question, since you have both, like I think the S1H has IBIS as well, is that right?
I've just got the S1 and the S5. I didn't go for
Oh,
the
I'm
S1H.
sorry, the S1, does that have IBIS in it too,
It
or?
does, yeah, it's basically just a really big S5, so it gets the least use out of any of my cameras. It's great for what it does,
Hmm.
but it was very much like a version 1 of the S5, so I'm definitely going to be
Right.
selling that very soon to put towards my GH6 fund.
All right. Because that was my question was really, eh, I don't know. This may be a tough one to answer, but I saw a video where somebody said that the extra weight of the of the camera really helps with the stabilization as well. So the GH6, being, I think it's 800 some grams, right? Um, I think that's also has a little bit to contribute to how the IBIS feels more stable, right?
Yeah, I guess it will, but also because I have the 24 to 105 stock on the S5, the S5 is considerably heavier, and that wasn't as good. So it
Mm,
has to be a lot to do with the new technology and the new Venus engine and the
yeah,
processing
yeah.
power.
Yeah, and I think that 100 megapixels, I tell you, that is just insane, insane. And the reason I asked the lens, because there's always been these claims that maybe it can't, lenses can't even resolve, 100 megapixels, but you'll get as much as you can out of them.
That's
They
it,
can
and,
certainly,
yeah, when the video's live, I'll put the raw files in my blog, so if anyone wants to download them and have a look and zoom right in, you're welcome to. I've got that issue at the moment actually because Lightroom won't open the raw files because
ooh,
the camera isn't out yet. So I've been having to convert them to TIFF or just shoot JPEGs. So it's been a bit tedious. So I'm really hoping
right,
the Lightroom update happens soon so I can make that video.
right. And I'm sorry, this is an older question. So a hobby photographer would never need full frame for personal stuff.
I mean, you could if you really like that shallow depth of field, or if you like to shoot at night, or maybe if it's gig photography you're doing, the trickier lighting situations, it can always be handy. But you can do great things with micro four thirds or any size sensor. Really, it's all about learning the ropes as a hobby photographer. What would you say to that one?
Well, yeah, I would, like I said, I would shoot full frame for the experience, meaning, it's a different experience. Like shooting film gives you a different photographic experience. Shooting full frame is a little different experience, as well as, crop sensor cameras like Micro Four Thirds. So as a hobbyist, if I had to pick one, I would shoot the one that I enjoy the most, and that would be the Micro Four Thirds system, my Pen F.
Oh, I love
Um,
the pen. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, you love and hate it, right?
I love it. I'm not intelligent enough for the menus. I can't get on board with the Olympus menus. Whatever it is in my brain is wired to the way that Lumix do it. But
Right,
the
right.
image quality and the tactile nature of the Pen F, every time I see one in the camera shop local to me, I'm like, "Should I?" I'm like, "No, you really shouldn't. You really shouldn't." But, yeah, I probably will.
Yeah, well, they might come out with a Pen F2 with a new menu. Who knows?
That'll be good.
Um, I guess this is a question here. What are your thoughts on the features that Panasonic removed from the GH6, like the 6K photo mode and focus stacking?
This is a good question. Also, I think they've replaced the 6K photo mode with the 75 frames a second burst mode, which is it's not continuous autofocus, but it is 75 raw images using the electronic sensor in a second. So it's about, and that would be much higher than 6K because it's 25 megapixels. So I don't think they've necessarily removed that feature. I think it's just evolved into the 75 frames a second. And in terms of focus stacking, I think it was a really good feature to have to save time. But I think
Hmm.
if you want to properly do focus stacking, I think you can't beat doing it the old school way and just moving the focus yourself and then stacking it together in Photoshop. Though I did really like that feature actually. I am sad to
So
see that one go.
is it the because there's a difference between like stacking in camera and then focus bracketing. What
Mhm.
is missing?
So your focus stacking, the mode that the question's about, is it would go through the whole focal range, so that everything from in front of your camera to infinity is in focus,
Hmm.
rather than exposure bracketing where you'd have brighter and darker images. Focus stacking is really good for landscape photography. Say, if you want to have something in the foreground that's sharp and in focus, but you want to have the background in focus as well.
Right.
That's what it's for. But you can do it manually just by going through the focal ranges,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just and then stacking it in Photoshop.
So it has lost the ability to automatically change the focus.
Yes, so now you have to do it manually and edit it
Ah,
yourself. But I do think the
Okay.
focus mode, I think the 75 frames per second is better than the 6K photo mode because it's much bigger, and you get your full raw file as well.
Okay. Is there anything else they removed that you can think of?
Do you know what was it I was looking for yesterday? It'll come to me. There's a
Okay.
few photo features that it has trimmed down on, I guess to make room for all the extra video features.
Yeah, it's definitely a very video-centric camera with just cinema camera,
That's what I was looking for.
specs.
Live composite mode. I'm sure some of the Lumix cameras got that in a firmware update, but it's not on the GH6.
Hmm.
And it's nowhere near
Okay.
as cool as the way Olympus do it.
Makes me wonder if they're going to make a G9 too or something.
If they made the G9 II with this sensor, where you can get really high ISOs, it would be killer. With that IBIS as well. If they make a photocentric one, it's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, that and I'm curious, have you noticed a uh improvement in dynamic range with the photos as well with that dual stack whatever they dual gain sensor?
Yes, I have. At the moment, I've not managed to pixel peep quite as much as I want to because I'm concerned that converting it to TIFF and then putting it in Lightroom might not be a full representation. So
Yeah.
I'm going to save my thoughts on that and properly investigate it when I can actually get the blooming files to open because it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not working. I've tried that trick, where you can change the data to make it pretend that it's a GH5, but
Hmm.
it still wouldn't work. Still wouldn't
Mm.
work. So I think that's a couple of weeks off yet, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll get there and it'll be interesting to see if the dual gain technology matches or exceeds the technology that OM Systems went with, which was the BSI
Hmm.
and quad Bayer sensor and all that fancy pants stuff, right?
Yeah.
Uh, this question from Sextus, it says, in high-res mode, does GH6 show an aiming box like the OM1?
I haven't tried the high res mode on the OM1, I'm afraid.
Yeah, neither
Um,
have I.
One thing that you can do on the GH6 if you want to is put on the actual screen, um, like a gyroscope, so it shows exactly how it moves, and you have sort of a cross to aim for, and when the cross goes green, you're perfectly stable, so it does help you keep your shots stable, but even without that, it's very forgiving. Like, we're in the middle of 2 big storms here in the UK, so when I've been doing all this long exposure stuff, I've been blowing around in the wind, and
Mm,
it's been fine, absolutely fine.
okay. Um, this is about the flippy screen. Does it have a dual personality? Like, does it flip down, up, down, left, right?
As I discovered yesterday. So it flips out it's like this the S1H screen, isn't it? So it flips out and round, but it doesn't go underneath, um, which I didn't realise.
So it'll
I thought
flip
I'd broke
up.
the car.
It
Yeah,
flips up, but not down. You have to flip it
not
all the way
down.
out to get it
Yeah.
down.
So if
Okay.
the screen on the outside, you could face it down or up. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. And that's, I've always preferred a regular flip screen for photography, and then the fully articulating obviously is better for video if you're going to do selfies and things. But lately, I've been really appreciating the fully articulating screen for photography as well. Because if you want to do a portrait mode kind of down low, right,
Yeah, you can
you have
pop it
to
flat. Yeah.
pop it this way. But anyway, uh, in the MFT lineup, the GX9 seems to be a street shooter. I'm just scrolling through. I don't have a GFX 100, but they're asking if we're going to compare the high res with an actual 100 megapixel camera.
I don't have maybe if I can find some raw files from it, but again, if it's not the same lens, if it's not the same situation, I think the best
Yeah,
that I can offer for the high res mode is just to sort of go in depth and we'll check the corners and I'll show how quick it is to actually take. But I can't really compare it to anything else, unfortunately, because it's the only camera I had that did it.
right, right. And have you ever considered Fuji or Sony or? Any other brands?
So I did have the OG Sony A7, um, the very first mirrorless camera that they brought out, and I mean,
Hmm.
obviously the line has progressed so much now; it's fantastic. I still don't like the colors as much as Lumix, um, but yeah, when I had it, it was far from perfect. The battery life was terrible. You got a lot of distortion in the lenses. I do quite like the look of the Fujis, to be honest. Every time I see people use them online, I think, "Ooh, the colours are gorgeous, the aesthetics are gorgeous," but I just can't justify buying any more cameras. I can't. After the
Yeah.
GH6.
Yeah, I bought an XT30 and you know, because I wanted to get the film simulations and all of that and that lasted for about one photo walk. I was like, this is nice, and then I'm like, anyway.
Yeah. I think it's a very individual choice, and it's not about picking a team. It just happens to be that my workflow works very well with Lumix. If yours works well with Sony or Fujifilm or Olympus, it's an individual choice, and you can always get very good results out of whatever you pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, if you have the luxury of a lot of, shooting a lot of cameras, different kinds, you do get a very different experience from every camera, I think. And the
Definitely.
biggest contrast being a film camera versus the digital, but every camera offers their own sort of style and personality, just like you,
Yes, definitely, definitely.
right? Oh, I'm sorry. I had a question up there and I took it down.
It was
Oh, the
about
bird eye
yes.
tracking. Yeah, I'm curious about the bird eye tracking and the AF accuracy of the OM1. I won't know till I got mine coming next week, so I'll help you out with that then. I no idea personally.
You made the jump. You did it. Oh, I can't wait to see those videos.
Well,
Are you excited to get it?
I'm very excited to get it. I can't wait. Uh,
Good.
But I'm not really a birder, but I guess I might be one. I'll have to become one for my audience. 'Cause that's the most common question. Well, not the most common, but that's a very common question. How is it for birds in flight and birds and birds and birds? And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm officially old now that I'm in my late 50s. I should start getting into birding,
I love
binoculars,
doing
and
bird photography. It's why I've got my 100 to 400, the really super telly for Lumix, and I had grand designs of taking the GH6 out, but of course, because of the storms, all the birds went away, so I couldn't try it. Um, but yeah, I think the autofocus is very, very, very much improved with the GH6, so I think it'd be very good for wildlife photography.
yeah, because I think I saw a line item for like animal tracking or animal
Yeah.
focus. So you had a chance to play with that.
I did with my soggy dogs. We took them out in the middle of a storm, which was a terrible
Hmm.
idea. But the birds were just, they wouldn't come to the feeder because we've just had the worst weather ever. So I didn't get a chance, unfortunately. But when I eventually buy a GH6, I will take it to the nature reserve and we'll have a good bird hide day with it.
Yeah, and when is GX6 supposed to be available for purchase?
It's supposed to be coming out at the beginning of March, they said. That's what they said in the UK event, anyway. And we
Hmm.
did quiz them about sort of availability, and they've said that they've got enough stock to meet demand, which we're very happy about.
Yeah.
So yeah, should be coming very, very soon.
All right. I I'm semi tempted to trade my S5 for GH6, but
Yeah. My
I'm
S1's
not.
gone. It's dead to me now. That's in the sale pile.
All right. It's a tough call. I mean, on the one hand, we do these. They come out with these cameras, and it's like, man, my life would not be possible without all of these upgrades. Life is so good now. And then 2 years later, another camera comes out, and you're like, there's no way I could do what I can do now without this new.
I know, it's so true. I mean, I
Just
feel terrible with, like, comparing, the GH6 to the GH5 in a lot of my upcoming videos, but at the end of the day, the GH5 is it 5 years old now? Something like that? So, of
yeah,
course, the
probably.
GH6 is gonna be better, but it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that the GH5 is bad. It's just things improve with technology all the time.
Yeah, so you can drop your GH5 and your S1H or S1, right?
Do you know, my GH5 is and will always be my favorite camera ever. It's the thing that got me into video production. It's the thing that got me into YouTube. It's the thing that
Hmm.
got me my lovely little nerdy community. I've dropped it in the sea, all the grips falling off. It's a complete mess, but I love it to bits, and I just don't think I could ever sell it, ever, ever.
Wow, so you have an emotional attachment.
I do. I shouldn't. It's just a tool for the job, but I love it to bits. Like if my house was on fire, I'd run in and get my GH5.
Wow. Wow, okay. Uh no, I would do that for my Pen F or EM10. I don't know.
Yeah,
No, I'd grab the
we've been
Pen
on
F.
adventures. You know, I've been dolphin watching with my GH5. I've been wild camping in Monument Valley with my GH5. You know, it's an emotional connection, even though that's really stupid, but it is. It
Yeah.
just is.
And it's, I think that the fact that you still have it and you use it as much as you do is a testament to how rugged, the GH series is really.
In the first week of owning it, I was trying to do the 4K photo mode, and I had my camera on a tripod in portrait mode, and it just hit the deck. My life was over. It just bounced. I think it made a dint in the floor actually. Like the camera was fine. And then ever since then I've just learned not to be precious with it. It's absolutely so robust. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Which we'll get to this question here in a second. One more thing that occurred to me was like they now have this fan on the
Mhm.
GH6, but it's still weather sealed,
It
which is
is,
amazing.
yes. Yeah, it is. We did ask that at the event because everyone was like, how does that work?" But they said that they've done exactly the same tests as they would with any other weather sealed
Hmm.
camera to get that certification. And I've had it out in a lot of rain and a lot of mud, and it's been absolutely fine. And Potato Jet put his in an oven. I don't know if you've seen his
No,
review of
I
it.
haven't seen
He,
it.
he put it in an oven to try and make it overheat, and it got to ridiculous temperatures before it wouldn't record anymore.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, the fan is good.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, a fan is going to make it cooler. I just didn't know if that compromised the weather sealing, but apparently not.
No, no. According to what I've been told, and some real world experience, I'd say
Hmm.
it's absolutely fine.
Okay, and then uh have you ever tried a Ricoh GR3X, if you even know what that is?
I've not. Every time I see sort of a camera that I don't quite, I'm not familiar with, I'm always thinking, "Ooh, let's have a look at that." Do you know much about
Yeah.
that camera?
Okay. I think it's just a compact, street camera, right? It's like pocketable and thin and but it's got an APS-C sensor and a 40 millimeter lens and
Wow. Okay.
stabilization. It's
I'll,
definitely a street shooter. Very discreet. Very discreet.
I'll,
It's
I'll
just
have to
all black.
research that. That sounds good fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Matty Salanto loves it. He thinks it's the best camera ever. And he's shot a lot of Panasonics and other brands. Um,
Oh,
let's see. I thought I saw. I don't know if you have any thoughts. I mean, appears Panasonic has abandoned MFT still cameras. End of the line, perhaps.
I don't agree with this. I've had absolutely no um, word one way or the other at the event. So this is just completely speculation. But as we were talking about before, if you can get the G9 or the G9 Mark II with this new stabilization, the new sensor, the new low light performance, it's an absolute killer of a photocentric camera. And I do think whenever we're here with our little community, we do show that there's a massive demand for still centric cameras. So I don't think they will. I hope they won't anyway. What's your thoughts on it, or do you think they've gone more video?
Well, the fact that they left out a couple of features on the GH6, which, should be just off the shelf type technology, nothing they had to develop,
Exactly.
but they made a conscious decision to take those things out, just to me implies that they're coming out with a stills centric camera.
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
I think they will, and
you know
I
that
think it would be very good.
because that just makes doesn't make sense to me. Like focus stacking seems like I said, they didn't have to design that from scratch. They already had it.
Like I think my G7 had that. Like it's been in loads of different cameras, and the live composite mode. I was just thinking, oh, I could test that before I send it back, and it wasn't in the menu. So there's a few things that they have cut back on for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I because Maddie was a lot less optimistic about the stills side,
Mm,
and he felt Panasonic was going to focus mostly on professional video. But it's weird they would leave those things out very deliberately
hmm
because they were on the GH5.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I'm sorry, what's this question here? It says here, in your upcoming video on handheld high-res still mode, try to take some museums or art gallery photos. I hope to use the okay, so you've already given the camera back, so I
I
guess
have,
this
yeah,
camera
I have
question is
unfortunately.
rhetorical.
But what I did do was a lot of street photography with the handheld mode. So my idea was we could zoom in on street signs very far into the image. So it's not sort of a direct comparison, but we'll be able to see just how sharp it is by zooming in, and I think it'd be great for museums and getting into all the artwork. I think it'd be really good for that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, because yeah, it's the low light capabilities and the handheld high res shot mode in a museum would be awesome.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? Take all the
Yeah,
artwork home with you.
yeah, literally, right? Um, please talk about it. Everybody needs 1,000 FPS slow video.
Oh yeah, we were having this conversation on Instagram the other
Hmm.
day, um, saying that certain older cameras could do 1000 FPS, but like HD or 720p, or
Mm-hmm.
and my argument was I would rather have lower frame rates that are in higher bit rates so that it'll match my existing footage and I can grade it all the same and it works. I don't think there's much point pushing for higher frames per second if the footage falls apart, if you know what I mean. But I
Mm-hmm.
think it would be fun to play with, definitely, if it went to higher frame rates.
Yeah, yeah. Professionally, I don't see much use for it because, like you said, when you have to put things together,
It has to match. It has to.
yeah, it's a little rough.
hmm
But yeah, for fun, yeah, it would be kind of fun.
Yeah,
1,000
uh,
frames per second.
it's so
Just
good.
drop the resolution down to 480p.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000. They wouldn't even have to do that. I bet they could do it in 720p.
hmm
If it might be just a firmware, I don't know, but
But yeah,
um,
the 120p in 4K on the GH6 is delightful, and it goes up to 300p for your HD, which is still very, very good.
now at 120p, does it still do autofocus?
It does indeed, and audio, so it records
Wow,
just like a normal piece of footage, so you could use it like that, but then you can slow it down to 20%, I think it is. Yeah, so it's crazy.
that is cool.
It still uses autofocus on the 240p as well, so it's not like the variable frame rate where there's no audio and it's all manual focus. It's very, very usable.
Is when you're at 120p, is the audio like all slowed down in slow motion too, or is it normal?
It plays back as normal. Obviously, you'll crank the shutter to get to 120p, so your shutter speed will look a little bit spicier than usual. But the audio is
Ah,
fine. It just plays back at normal speed, and then you have to put it into your editor to slow it down.
wow. Oh, that'd be
Yeah,
kind of cool. I just picture like maybe putting a wireless mic in a bird feeder or something, and then recording from a distance at 120p and playing that back.
that'd be so cool.
That would be
And it's
kind of cool.
unlimited recording. Yay!
Right. What's this question here? How can the VFR mode go slower than 2 FPS or something between 2 and 12? I don't know what that is.
So the way that you can use variable frame rate in the other direction, I do anyway, is to fake hyperlapses. So on one of my custom buttons on the GH6, I got it down to 2 frames a second, so that if you're walking with a gimbal, it speeds the video up and looks like a hyperlapse. It's really cool. I'm not sure on the exact spec, but I have seen it down to 2 frames per second because I've used that on that.
So VFR, variable frame rate. So that means you can tell it 2 frames per second?
Yes. So it'll go super duper quick or super duper slow. So on your S5, it's called slow and quick or quick and slow. So you can do it on your S5. And if you just walk in a straight line, you'll have your motion blur and it'll turn into a hyperlapse. It's really good fun to play with.
Wow, that's cool.
Hmm.
I've never seen that. I didn't know that they could do that. Is it only on the GH series or
No, it's on your S5. Your S and Q button on the dial.
my little S5 has that?
Yep, on your S and Q button. That's so the quick part of the Q part
Oh,
is
wow.
the quick. Yeah.
All right, new video coming soon.
Yeah, it's a fun feature to play with because I like hyperlapses, but you really need the motion blur to sell them. So if you're shooting at a lower frame rate and a lower shutter
Mhm.
speed, it bakes it in, so you don't have to edit it. It just does it all for you.
Huh, I had no idea. Well, I've been
I'll
missing
add,
out,
I'll add
but
that to my video list.
yeah, yeah, that is definitely something because nobody's even done a tutorial on that as far as I know.
Have we struck gold? I'm going to add it to my list. I'm going to make a quick tutorial.
Yeah, yeah, if I don't do it first. Oh,
Yes, I'll race you to it.
just kidding. Um, let me pull up something real quick. Because on the photo side, well, let me ask you about what do you think about this 5.7K capture? Because we're all used to 4K. Um, well, tell me your thoughts about 5.7K. Are you going to use that, or is that sort of a novelty? I don't know.
The two reasons I think that it's viable and interesting is because your cinema 4K is a little bit of a narrower aspect ratio. So I think once you fill the frame at 5.7K, it turns back into just standard 4K resolution. And the other thing is if you're delivering in 4K, it will give you a little bit of wiggle room so you can punch in a little bit. Like at the moment, I film in 4K but edit in 1080p, so I can zoom in 4 times and not lose any resolution. But if you're
Hmm.
delivering in 4K, you don't have any wiggle room. So if you can film at 5.7, you can punch in a little bit without losing anything.
Mm. And how often do you deliver 4K versus 1080?
Never, never. Always HD for me. It might be something that I look into if anyone ever asks for it, but I much more value being able to straighten the video and crop in and add in digital motion into the footage rather than the end 4K result, personally.
Yeah, yeah.
But I always shoot in 4K.
I um I did one job where I had 4K copy and an HD copy. I sent the client both. They never even bothered to download the 4K.
Yeah, I don't think the average consumer doesn't really know the difference, and particularly if you're delivering social content like I am in my corporate work, it's all on your phone anyway. So it's not like people are
Hmm.
going to be watching it on a 65-inch television.
Yeah. I have a 65-inch, but it's full HD. You know, I don't own anything 4K in terms of monitors or TVs actually myself. I'm not sure what this question is. Emily, is it me or was your review of the GH6 in HD?
Yes, yes. So I filmed everything in 4K, but I've actually uploaded it into HD. Um, Given it was a techie review, I possibly could have and should have uploaded it into 4K, but I've done a lot of like punching in with the footage, so you
Hmm.
would lose resolution if it was uploaded in 4K, unfortunately.
Okay. What do you think about like the dual card slot, one CF and one regular SD? Do you find that a kind of weird or?
Yes, very weird. In the whole time that I used the GH6, nothing but a few JPEGs ended up on the SD card. because nothing else was compatible. And when you plug it into the computer as well, it reads the SD card as default, so you have to remember to unplug the SD from the camera in order for it to look for the other card. So I
Hmm.
had a heart attack the first time I plugged it in because I thought nothing had recorded. I wished it'd have gone with both feet and put both slots the same so that you could properly dual record. But
Yeah,
yeah.
because from the specs that I saw, it looks like you can still do 4K 42210-bit on an SD card.
Hmm.
Because a fast SD card like a V90 will do 600 megabits. Is that enough for ProRes or?
It's not enough for ProRes, no. So what happened if you do it as you tell the camera to record to both. The moment that you choose a format like ProRes that doesn't record to the SD, you get an error message that says, dual recording cannot be enabled. So you have to go into the
Mm,
menu and change it to relay mode. And then by the time you've done that, the moment's gone. So I just left it in relay mode because if you're changing from format to format very frequently, which I imagine most people will be in when they use the GH6, if not all of it can be filmed in dual mode, you'll get the error message where it'll tell you that the SD card isn't working.
mm, okay. So it can be you just have to know the camera and how it's going to handle it when you change
Yeah,
and
there's a
shoot
cut-off
accordingly.
point and shoot accordingly. If you want dual recording, like if I was shooting for a wedding, I think I'd end up shooting in 8-bit for the whole day because I don't have enough SD cards in the world for the amount of footage that I will gather. In that case, it would dual record and it would be fine. But then when you get into your 10 bits and your higher codecs, the SD card nopes out.
Mm. So you you record your weddings in 8-bit.
Hmm.
Wow. And then how in terms of like minutes or hours, how much footage do you capture on a typical wedding?
I usually fill up around 100 gigabytes on both of my cameras.
Wow.
Um, so it's quite a lot. It's lots of small snippets usually,
Mm-hmm.
and I shoot a lot in 4K 60, which is the main reason I'm shooting in 8-bit because on the GH5 I had no choice at 60p. Um, but also it's just manageable. I might swap to 10-bit during the evening dancing when you need a little bit more dynamic range and you need to push and pull it a little bit more. But when
Right.
you're in good light for 90% of the day, I don't want to concern myself with swapping out SD cards every time they fill up. I'd rather, if I can do it all dual recorded on one SD card for the whole day, which is like 250 gig or 128, depending on which ones I'm using, it's much easier.
Yeah. Definitely that would be easier. I mean,
Hmm.
I drop in two 256 gig cards. When I got my Panasonic S5, my very first video job, I recorded 422 10-bit on a 256 gig card and I filled it up. I had to get another card out.
This is it. This is it. And it happens at the most inopportune times at a wedding. So I'd rather just, it's such a luxury to shoot in 4K, even. If you go back a couple of years, it was only going to be HD. And just for the sheer quantity of footage, I don't get, it's just not manageable. I'd need a hard drive for every single job.
Yeah,
But for
yeah,
corporate stuff that's going to be condensed into like 2 3 minute segments, then it's as higher frame rates, higher codecs
yeah.
that I can cope with.
So when you get the GH6, do you feel like you're going to be shooting more 422 10-bit stuff with the CF Express, or are you going to keep your same workflow?
This is my problem because for weddings, I just think it would eat up the SD cards or the main card very, very quickly. So is it you use your 120p for your confetti shots and for your key moments, and then shoot the bulk of it on your S5 or your GH5? It's there's pros and cons to it, definitely.
Yeah. Wow. Well, good luck when it would be interesting to see. I would think, because like I said, I think one of the most beautiful things about the GH6 is that, you drop in maybe a 2 terabyte express card in there and you don't need to get an external recorder, right? Because you
Yeah,
have everything there that you need.
yeah. I
That
I, I shot everything I could in the last 2 weeks was the highest quality that I could, because I was like a kid in a toy shop because I've never had that before. So yeah, I've for all the GH6 stuff that I've filmed, it's all been the highest quality possible. But for my workflow, if I had one, I'd really have some assessing to do, I think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So here's a question from Roman. What do you wanted to be on the GH6 and is still missing?
Ooh, good question. I I really miss the live composite mode from the Olympus line, and I know that Lumix did some kind of version of that, which was nowhere near as usable. But the technology's there. I wish that, maybe if we get a G9 Mark II, we'll get the live composite mode. I think that would be really good
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, I the GH6 is not on my radar really, so I don't have any uh things that I think I would have wanted that are missing. So I can't really say for myself, but yeah, on the phone because I'm more photocentric, right? So I would say the focus stacking is definitely a big deal.
Yeah, it's a good thing to have. And again,
Yeah.
stick it in the menu, hide it in the menu. It doesn't have to have its dedicated dial, but it would be nice to have had.
Yeah.
I'm glad they've kept the time lapse features and the stop motion features because I think they are very, very handy and I use them a heck of a lot.
That's not on the GH6 or it is?
It is,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Yeah,
yeah, they've
that would be
kept
kind
all
of
that.
cool.
Yeah, and you've got the auto exposure leveling now on the time lapses, which the S5 does as well, where if you
Hmm.
have like a sunset and the exposure changes, it will ramp it down for you automatically, which is
Mm.
beautiful.
Okay, and here's another GH6 question. Does the GH6 have H.265 10-bit 420 low bit rate?
That is a question that I wish I had the camera in front of me to check. I have been
Uh,
sent a spec sheet for Panasonic, but I'm not too sure off the top of my head. I'm very
yeah,
sorry.
4K 60 10-bit. Yeah, that would be on a spec sheet somewhere, right?
Hmm.
Uh, let me see. The lowest bit rate I see for 4K is 150 megabits.
Yeah, I was gonna say it ate up my cards very quickly.
Okay. Yeah, everything else is pretty high. 150s. I mean, I wouldn't consider that a high bit rate. That's just sort of a good bit rate to have.
Yeah.
You know, if you're talking about 4K, if you're talking 1080p, then 20 megabits is enough, really.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, which YouTuber has the power to force? I would say nobody.
No, nobody. I don't think.
I
No.
guess the Lumix to work for our lens compatibility. Yeah, that's just not going to happen. I know that Jordan and Michael, Jordan and Chris Nichols. I don't know why I said Michael. You know, those guys, I think they did a video about things they wished, and one of them was more lens compatibility between the cameras. Specifically, I think the dual IBIS, right, where you use the lens
Yeah.
IBIS and the in body. Um, there's just too many variables for that to work, you know?
Yeah, I think the technology between the two brands is just slightly different and slightly incompatible in that way. And I think also like they want to keep some of the market share for themselves. I think some of it is by design so that if you do go to Olympus, it's better for you to get Olympus lenses or vice versa.
Yeah. And they
Um,
both make fantastic lenses, so you have a
mhm,
choice. But yeah, there are definitely times like I really like the 35 to 100 2.8 from Panasonic. I
it's
would
beautiful.
Yeah, I would buy it, but it's just I'm an Olympus shooter, so
Yeah, I had that on the Pen F and it hunted quite badly. Um,
yeah.
I maintain, I know the lenses are compatible, and I have some really nice Olympus primes and the Olympus macro, but I think some of the tele lenses on the Olympus and possibly vice versa, do hunt a little bit, it's better for your main stock lens to get like your own the same brand. I think the prime lenses are a lot more forgiving.
Right, right. And there's very specific features that may or may not work. I know at least on Olympus or OM system cameras, some things get disabled when you use an off-brand like a Panasonic lens on it.
Yeah,
I don't remember what they are now, but maybe high-res shot mode might not work. No,
yeah,
actually that works. But some, things like that, right? Little things.
yeah.
Um, and here's one more question. I don't want to keep you too long, but are you making the use out of the 13 custom modes that can be stored now?
I love the custom modes on Lumix. I tend to use them for quick access to different video modes. So on my custom modes, when I'm shooting a wedding, for instance, I'll have the highest frame rate that I could get, like on the GH5, would be the variable frame rate. I've got one custom mode to do my hyperlapses, which isn't for weddings, but just for fun. And then, instead of routing through your quick menu, you can just turn a dial and you're on 60p, turn a dial, you're on 24p, turn a dial, you're on 120p, and then you can concentrate on what you're doing and you've set it all up. That's mostly what I use them for.
Oh, that's interesting. So when you say turn a dial, are you talking about like one of the front or back dials you can quickly change video
Yeah,
modes?
so on your S5, all your C modes,
Yeah.
I use all those for custom different modes.
Yeah, because I only have three here, not 13.
Yeah, there's a few different things that you can do. I think it might be you've got like on the S1, you've got mode 1 and mode 2 by switching a switch on the bottom of the camera. So you've got 3 in mode 1 and then 3 separate ones in mode 2.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so they hide them around in various ways.
Right, right. Yeah, I honestly, this thing, I just use the hyperfocal distance, so I don't even use the AF for my work. And then I set it to 422 10-bit internal 4K and push the record button, and that's all I know how to do on this. I've never set a custom button or anything with it.
Mm.
It does one thing very, very well.
That's
Probably
the
does a lot of things very well,
right
but
tool for the job, isn't it? That's all we need.
it does one thing that I haven't been able to, at least up till now, with my Olympus camera. Um, and I guess Randy wants any rumors on the G9?
There were a few questions thrown at the Panasonic guys when we were at the event, and there was a few really high up people at the back where they were just like, "No, we can't answer that. No, we can't answer that." And that was one of those questions. So I can't tell you one or the other, I'm afraid. I
Yeah,
hope there will
it's
be though.
I hope so too. I thought the G9 was an awesome camera. I mean, I never bought one, but I love the top plate LCD. I don't know why I'm just old school that way. I just really like that. And I liked it on the Fujis that have that. Uh, it's just a cosmetic thing. It's not a deal breaker for me because my Olympuses don't have it. But
Yeah, my S1
uh,
has it, and when I wanted to buy it, it was like, yes, that's something I really want, and I've not used it. Don't even
yeah,
look at it, but it does. It's aesthetically very nice.
yeah, it's there. It looks good, right? Like the Pen F.
Yeah,
There's no reason to buy a Pen F, none.
it's
But you buy
beautiful.
it
It's
because
beautiful.
it's nice, right?
Yeah.
And then Randy had a question about the flippy screen. I guess he wants a little more detail on that. I mean, you only figured it out last night, but
Yeah. So if you look at what the S1H can do, it flips out, but then the articulating screen comes out as well. So you can look down and it's there, and it can go out. And the benefit of that as well is it doesn't hit your HDMI cables or anything else that you've got plugged in. Um, yeah, I thought I'd broke the camera. I was like, why is this moving on a hinge? And it just goes boop out the back. It's cool.
yeah, I think the one of the nice benefits is being able to just tilt it up without having to go through the whole, flip it out and whip it around.
Yeah,
So the workflow will be a little faster when that's all you need. You're on a level tripod. But also, the fact that if you do want to flip the screen around by tilting it out, it won't run into the cables,
yeah.
you know.
And flipping it out is really good when it's on a gimbal as well, because it balances better when you don't have to flip the screen out. And if you
Mm,
use any of the weird modes like that make the camera spin, like your vortex mode, the screen can sometimes get in the way of that. So it's really nice just to have a screen that'll flip out and you can look down and you can see it on a gimbal.
yeah. Yeah. And so the flip screen just flips up. So it's good if you want to do street photography like Randy was asking here. And then we've answered this, but the tilt screen, it doesn't flip down.
No,
It's
no,
only
just
up.
yes.
Right. Okay. Well, any last words for our viewers here? Because I don't want to keep you here all day.
I just thank you so much for coming in and getting involved. I think it's such a lovely thing, and thank you for your patience with me having a bit of break from YouTube. I totally assumed that everyone would forget who I was, and you know, all gone in the blink of an eye. So it's so nice to know that people are still on my little corner of the internet, and we can have a good old nerd out. There's loads more content coming.
Awesome. Yeah, you were definitely missed, and I tell you, just time to time, people, your name would come up, and I'm like, I don't know where she is.
I know.
I mean, I would see your Instagram posts, you were posting as a very social person, but not as a content creator.
No, I stepped out of that world for a while. I think the pandemic was quite stressful for a lot of people, myself
Yeah.
included, and it was very strange because even though I was a freelancer, because I was creating content for someone else, it was almost like going back to a 9 to 5 again, creating
Mhm.
content with other people. So it was a little bit, yeah, it was very exhausting and not. I had nothing left to give after I'd done my job for the day, and yeah, I'm glad that the world has opened up again and I'm out
Yeah.
out and about getting some corporate stuff and social stuff and YouTube stuff again.
Awesome. And I do have your link down below in the show notes or the description. It's a short link to like all of your stuff.
Mm,
So you have, links to your educational material, links to presets and other items you've put together that people can look at, and links to, I think, your corporate portfolio, like the videos you've
yeah,
done.
just a little show reel of some of the stuff I've done recently. Like I
Yeah,
did
yeah.
the pole dancing fitness place. I had so much fun just
Oh,
whizzing
I
around with
love
my
that one.
gimbal, and everyone was like so talented, so blooming talented. It was so much
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, so definitely check those out, and of course your Instagram and YouTube links are down there.
Oh, thank you.
But Emily's back, everyone. So
Woo!
I'm very excited, and I really look forward to some more content coming from you. So thanks for
Thank
joining us
you.
today,
Oh,
Emily,
thank
and
you.
everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Lots of great questions. Everyone, you guys have a good weekend.